Have you ever tried to cover up a mistake only to make the situation 1,000 times worse? Well, unless you ended up with a meat hook in your neck, then this group of high schoolers has you beat. They think they got away with the perfect crime, but that's only until someone comes looking for revenge. And now their only hope of survival is figuring out who's after them before he picks them off one at a time. It's time for another absolute 90s classic, because we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the hook man in I Know What You Did Last Summer. These four are about to go from high school straight to the cemetery. It's the 4th of July, 1996, and the teens of South Park are ending their night with some ghost stories around the campfire. After splitting up for some alone time, they all meet back at the car, but Barry here has been hitting the bottle all night, so his buddy Ray offers to drive instead. Barry keeps acting reckless the entire way home, spilling his bottle all over the others as they're coming around a bend. But suddenly, that's when disaster strikes. Just then, they plow right into something in the middle of the road going full speed, causing them to lose control and fishtail around. Skidding to a stop, they all run out to see what the hell happened, and sure enough, they find the victim lying there motionless just around the bend. I mean, he's too badly injured for anyone to identify, and after checking for a pulse, they're horrified to discover that the man is dead. But things get even crazier when the boys start discussing what they're going to do next. To her shock, neither of them want to call the police, so Barry decides that they need to throw his body into the ocean and let nature take its course. Julie here wants nothing to do with it, but the others are all convinced that it's the only choice. And pretty soon, they're going to realize that they've just made their biggest mistake. Okay, this is the worst idea that I've ever heard in my life, and if they decide to go through with it, then keeping up with each other after high school is going to be the least of their concerns. These idiots are all panicking because they think that they're about to go to prison for manslaughter, but they forgot one very important detail. Barry here drives a Beamer in high school, which means that his parents have plenty of money for a very good lawyer. No, but all jokes aside, they're immediately jumping to the worst case scenario, when the reality of the situation isn't even close to as bad as what they're thinking of doing. After all, it's 100% true that Ray didn't even have one sip of alcohol. And when you look at this dark highway with no streetlights, sidewalks, or intersections, there's absolutely no reason to think that there might be suddenly just some random dude standing there in the middle of the road. Based on this, their lawyers could definitely make the case that this was really just a tragic accident, and then they'd only be looking at a few minor charges tops. But if they decide to dispose of the body, now they're looking at all kinds of felonies that could have them facing decades in prison. Even Julie and Helen here, who've done absolutely nothing wrong up until now. On top of that, they haven't even confirmed that the guy is actually dead yet. Last time that I checked, Ray's not a doctor, and he's the only one who even bothered to check the guy for a pulse. I mean, after a traumatic accident, instead of checking their wrist, you need to use the carotid artery, because it's the most reliable method of finding a pulse if the victim is in trauma or shock. You gotta use 2 fingers and check for at least 5 to 10 seconds in order to be sure. Now, just because they have no pulse doesn't mean that they're dead. That's when you start CPR and try to keep their blood circulating until paramedics arrive. And if you've gotten that far, then salute you a real one. Now, since they don't have cell phones, they'd have to split up to get help. I mean, I would send Julie to drive with Barry to the nearest house, while Ray and Helen stayed here with the injured man. This separates the more impulsive members of the group and gives them all a chance to do the right thing before they ruin their lives forever type. Before the girl can make up her mind, they see another pair of headlights coming up the road, causing the boys to panic and quickly throw the body over the guardrail. It's this dorky guy, Max, who they got into a little squabble with earlier that night, but he has a crush on Julie, so they send her over to distract him while the others finish hiding the corpse. He can tell that something's fishy from the damage to the car, but they're able to run him off without any trouble, and once he's gone, they stuff the body into the trunk, taking it down to the nearby docks. As they're about to throw him overboard, Julie notices a tattoo on his arm reading Susie and asks the others if they should check his wallet for an ID, but none of them want to make this any more personal than they have to. After arguing about who's going to push him in, Helen here decides that she'll just do it herself when all of a sudden the man wakes up. reaching out and grabbing the tiara off her head before tumbling over the edge. Panicking, Barry dives in after him and tries to take the tiara out of his hand, but as he reaches to grab it, the man suddenly opens his eyes and stares directly at him. Terrified, he swims back to the dock, leaving the fishermen behind, and storms back to the car, making them all vow to keep what happened a secret until the day they die. The only one who's still holding out is Julie, but he threatens her into agreeing even though she knows that it's wrong. And after that night, their lives will never be the same again. 1 year later, Julie here comes back to Southport for the first time since she left for college, but these days, she doesn't exactly look forward to coming home. Her mother can tell right off the bat that something has changed about the girl, and she hasn't spoken to any of her friends since the night that it happened. But there's someone in town who's been waiting for her to come back. Going to the mall, her mother brings back a letter addressed to Julie, but there's nothing on the envelope to tell her where it came from. And opening it up, she's horrified to discover one simple handwritten message. "I know what you did last summer." Worried, she goes to visit Helen at her family's store the next day, where she's been stocking shelves ever since her dreams of making it big as an actress didn't work out. After taking a look at the note for herself, they still can't imagine who it could be from, so they decide to check in with Barry next and see what he thinks. Well, Barry here is furious at them for even showing up, reminding them that they were never supposed to talk about that night again. While everyone else was busy trying to forget about it, Julie got curious and learned that the man's body was eventually found, with his cause of death listed as an accidental drowning. That still doesn't explain who sent the letter, but Barry's convinced that he knows who it is, remembering that Max was the only person who saw them at the scene of the crime. Okay, I hate to say it, but I actually have to agree with Barry here. Normally, if you got some kind of threatening letter in the mail, then it might seem like a good idea to get some help from a trusted friend. But in this case, there are actually a few reasons why that was actually a pretty big mistake. The truth behind what he's saying comes from our understanding of group dynamics and how they factor in when it comes to criminal investigations. I mean, according to studies, the clearance rate for crimes committed by solo offenders is only about like 36%, but for groups of 2 or more co-offenders, it jumps all the way to 50 and sometimes even higher. The reason for this is because although one person might be able to keep their mouth shut, the investigators can get them to turn against each other by going after the weakest link in the group, which is exactly what ended up happening here. You know, Julie's letter was threatening, but it was also incredibly vague and never made any serious accusations or offered any proof. Now, by running straight to her friends, she's not only reestablishing the link, she's borderline admitting to being guilty just by her actions, and that's exactly what whoever sent this message wants. Now, we can't forget that Max was the only other person who saw them on the road that night, which means that if it wasn't him who sent the letter, then it could be one of her own friends. That's why, instead of telling anyone, the much smarter thing to do would have been to keep the letter a secret and go on with life acting like absolutely nothing had happened. Whoever sent this was expecting a reaction, but ignoring it forces them to completely rethink their strategy. In the meantime, she can carefully observe her friends' behaviors while she's waiting for the next contact from the stalker, and pay attention to see if any of them start acting suspiciously. I'd also take the same approach with Max, since right now he's their prime suspect. Instead of confronting him directly, which would just cause more problems, they need to remember an important tactic that they used before. Max has a crush on Julie, and they can use her to find out what he knows. Now that she's back in town, Julie should ask Max for a chance to catch up, like somewhere in public, like a park or a restaurant. Then her friends can keep an eye on her from a distance, and Julie can use the meeting to find out if he really knows anything, or if he's just a dead end, without doing anything that would make the group look even more guilty in the process. The three of them go down to the fish market where Max is working, and Barry tells the girls to wait outside while he goes in to confront him. Asking for a chance to talk in private, he starts manhandling the guy as soon as he lets his guard down, grabbing a hook and threatening to kill him if he doesn't cut it out. But the whole time, Max keeps acting like he has no idea what Barry here is even talking about. Outside, the girls aren't exactly happy with how he handled the situation, but they're interrupted when they run into Ray working at the dock. It's obvious that he and Julie here have some unfinished business to take care of, and the others leave so that the two of them can have a chance to talk. They clearly still have feelings for each other, but Julie says that she can't love him anymore after what they did, and literally takes off running when her inner struggle becomes too strong. Meanwhile, back at the fishery, Max is still huffing and puffing about getting clowned at his own workplace. But these lobsters aren't going to boil themselves, so he grabs a pair of gloves to keep his fingers safe as he gets back to work. When he comes back, there's a lot more steam built up then than there was when he left, and that's when he sees a shadow cross by on the other side of the room. Leaning in for a closer look, he starts to think that it might have been his imagination, but just when he lets his guard down, a hook-wielding psycho dressed in full fisherman gear suddenly leaps out of the fog, impaling him through the jaw and dragging his body away before anyone can notice. Later that day, Barry pulls up at the boxing gym to blow off some steam, but it's a good thing that he's practicing now, because soon he's about to be fighting for his life. After cleaning up in the shower, he goes back to his locker only to find a picture of his car with the words, "I know," written on the other side. Just then he hears a noise on the other side of the room, but when he goes to check it out, there's nobody else in sight, and strangely his favorite jacket from high school is missing from his locker when he gets back. What's really strange is that the owner says he was the only person at the gym, and rushing outside, he gets there just in time to see his precious car driving away. Furious, he starts chasing them as they reverse down the street, but that's when the driver hits the brakes and starts speeding straight towards him, forcing Barry to run for his life. Eventually, he ends up cornered by the guy's sick driving moves, leaving him with nowhere else to run, and they hit him so hard that they send him flying straight through a shed. Luckily, he's still alive, but there's nothing that he can do as the killer closes in, and suddenly everything goes black. Hours later, Barry wakes up at the hospital, traumatized but still alive. It looks like the killer decided to spare his life, at least for now anyway, and his friends all came as soon as they heard the news. He throws some suspicion at Ray here, pointing out that he has the exact same type of fishing gear that the killer was wearing, but the others aren't ready to take things that far just yet. Still, he insists that they can't go to the police, but Helen points out that neither can the killer, so all they have to do is figure out who he is and stop him before he strikes again. Their victim's name was David Egan, so the best place to start is with his friends or family, but soon they're going to realize that solving this mystery is not going to be as simple as they think. Okay, well, I guess now at least we know one thing for sure. Max here definitely wasn't the stalker. The good news is that as the kill count goes up, our list of potential suspects actually goes down, and now that we've had a chance to meet him in person, we can make some important observations about the Hookman's behaviors. Now, what's strange about these two attacks is that the fisherman didn't waste any time killing Max, but then decided to leave Barry here alive? The only explanation must be that he's saving them for something much worse, and this actually matches up with his actions so far. After all, the only reason why he'd even send them letters in the first place is because he wants to mess with them psychologically for a while before he kills them. And although it might not sound like it, this is actually an advantage for Julie and her friends. Like Helen pointed out, they're in no danger of him going to the police, so it all comes down to stopping the killer before he finishes them off. And as long as he's still playing mind games instead of finishing the job, then it gives them time to think of a plan. Now, with that being said, Barry could have ended this whole nightmare tonight if he'd had just a slightly better strategy. I don't know about you guys, but it looks like the killer wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine by running him over with his own car. Yeah, and as we can see from what happened last year, human versus car is actually a pretty losing battle. But when he had Barry cornered by the shed, that was actually his chance to turn the tables. Barry had his choice of 4 directions to go here, and he chose the worst possible one. Instead of running straight in the same direction as the car was already going, he should have simply drove 90 degrees to the left or right. After recognizing the danger, he only needed about 0.2 of a second to react, and an athletic person like Barry can clear over 5 feet with a full body lateral dive. It looks like he's driving a Beamer from '97, so based on the measurements of its wheelbase, turning radius, and steering ratio, we can estimate that it can only alter its path about 2.5 feet to either side before reaching where Barry was standing, giving him plenty of space to dodge the impact if he just leapt to the side. I mean, this would have sent the killer crashing into the shed while Barry got back to his feet. And then he could have used his boxing skills to give the guy the beatdown of a lifetime. At least they're still alive, but from now on, they need to stay ready for a fight. It's not a matter of if, but when the killer is going to attack again. But as long as he can't go to the police, then every encounter is a chance for Julie and her friends to kick his ass instead and stop this nightmare pronto-like. The girls head back to Julie's place and fire up the old laptop to run David's name through a search engine, but what they find is even more shocking than they ever expected. It turns out that David was involved in an accident that killed his fiancée Susie 1 year before Julie and her friends hit him. The man's only living relatives are his mother and sister, who have a house somewhere far on the outskirts of town, so with nothing else going on, they decide to visit the address and see what they can find. After a long drive out to the house, Julie starts getting frustrated when no one answers the door, and they're snooping around for any signs of life when they're confronted by the man's sister, Missy. Pretending like their car broke down, they ask to come inside and use her phone, but they're really using it as a chance to get a closer look inside the house. They quickly realize that she went to the same high school a few years before them, and it's clear that her life has completely fallen apart since her brother's death. It hits the girls pretty hard, but they still need to figure out who's trying to kill them. So Helen tries tricking her into giving up the names of any of her brother's friends. Sadly though, it doesn't seem like the guy really had any, except for one nice fella who came by a few days after he died to pay his respects and went by the name Billy Blue. By now, Julie is ready to get out of there, so they head back to their car, acting like a tow truck will be there soon. She's rattled after having to face the consequences of their actions, but before she's able to leave, the woman comes out and catches the two of them lying, eyeing the girl suspiciously as they drive away. It's after dark by the time that they get back home, and while Helen is in the kitchen getting something to drink, an uninvited visitor lets themselves inside. It's the Hook Man, but instead of attacking, he sneaks straight up to the second floor, disappearing into her bedroom just as she turns the corner. The girl goes about her normal routine with absolutely no idea that she's being watched, never suspecting that the entire time the killer is standing right on the other side of the closet door. There's no telling how long he stays there looking at her, but this time he decides to leave her alive, and it isn't until the morning that she realizes anything was wrong. Waking up from a peaceful night's sleep, she's horrified to find that somebody put her old tiara back on her head, and then spent all night cutting out huge clumps of her hair, leaving the message "soon" written on the mirror in red lipstick, just to mess with her head even more. Okay, she might be upset about her hair, but this girl has no idea how lucky she is just to be alive. They're barely any closer to finding out who's after them, and meanwhile, the killer here is just toying with them like a bunch of NPCs in creative mode. So they need to start making better decisions if they're going to survive. Now, first of all, leaving your front door unlocked when you know damn well that there's someone trying to kill you might be the single dumbest thing that you could possibly do. I mean, all she had to do was turn the deadbolt, and the dude's entire plan would have fallen apart. But the only reason why she's even still alive is because he's having fun driving them insane, I know it. From now on, I'd be sleeping with the doors locked and a baseball bat next to the bed, because there's no way in hell that I'd be letting this freak walk right into my house and kill me without a fight. Now, after visiting with Missy, they've just picked up a new lead with this guy Billy Blue, and now their next goal is to find a way to track him down. But when you think about the situation logically, it's a bit of a waste of their time and effort. Like, think about it this way: whoever's doing this, we know that these four are his only targets, and he's obviously not going to turn them into the police. With that being said, they need to learn from their mistakes with Max, and instead of focusing on finding the killer, they should try letting the killer come to them instead. So far, he's gone after everyone in the group besides Ray, so as long as he isn't the killer himself, then there's a good chance that he'll be the next target. For now, they should keep the plan between Julie, Helen, and Barry and use Ray as live bait. Like, please, Ray, can we just, make it look like we want to kill you, but really not really? Gotcha! I would park both of their cars in front of Helen's house that night, making it look like they're protecting her, while Ray's all alone. But the truth is that it's just a decoy, because instead, they're going to quietly sneak out of the house without being observed and to keep an eye on Ray's place for any suspicious activity. By setting a trap, they might catch the killer as he goes in to play another one of his pranks, or catch Ray as he sets out for another night of tormenting his former friends. But either way, it gives them a chance to catch this guy by surprise before he claims another victim. As soon as Julie hears what happens, she immediately jumps in the car and goes to check on her friend, but little does she know that she's in for a surprise of her own. She's driving back down the road with her hands firmly at 10 and 2 when she notices a mysterious hat in the back seat, and that's when she begins to hear a strange, scratching sound coming from somewhere inside. Sensing trouble, she quickly pulls over to check the trunk, but nothing could prepare her for what's about to happen next, because when she lifts it open, she finds Max's lifeless body with dozens of crabs crawling all over him. And after almost getting hit by a passing truck, the only thing that she can think to do is run to her friend's house on the next block. After telling the others what happened, they follow her back to the car only to find that the body has already disappeared, making Julie here look completely delusional in front of her friends. She's convinced that the killer is just playing mind games to screw with them before the big finale, but now Barry has a different idea about who might be responsible. Pulling up to Ray's place, Barry throws a sucker punch as soon as he gets close, still believing that it's him who's behind the attacks. The girls quickly break them up, insisting that they need to work together if they're ever going to catch the real killer, and that's when Helen gets another idea. Remembering that her older sister graduated the same year as David, they decide to take a look through her old high school yearbook and see if they can find any pictures of the mysterious Billy Blue. There's no one in the yearbook matching the name, but they realize that he might have been using an alias, so after hitting another dead end, they decide to take the book back to Missy and see if she can point him out. The only problem is that Ray refuses to go anywhere near the house, and Helen is supposed to be appearing on a float at the town's 4th of July parade. They need her and Barry at the parade in case the killer shows up, but Ray thinks that they should just cut their losses and get the hell out of the town while they still have a chance. I mean, he makes a good point, but Julie here is tired of running, and now she wants to stop this creep once and for all. So if he's not going to help her, then she'll just have to go visit Missy again by herself. Okay, this is interesting because even though Helen has to make her appearance at the parade, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, on the positive side, it's an extremely public place with an above average amount of security where everyone's attention will be focused directly onto her. And that should make it pretty damn hard for the Hookman to pop out and do his thing. It's pretty much guaranteed that he's going to be watching, but if he's going to attack, then he'll need the right opportunity. And knowing this gives them a chance to turn the ambush back around. She can't be attacked while she's in a public area, so instead of riding on the float with her, Barry should just disguise himself as just another spectator in the crowd. I mean, without making it too obvious. He can watch Helen's every move throughout the parade and keep an eye out for anyone who seems like they're observing her a little too closely, like 13-year-old me would have been doing back then. Sarah Michelle Gellar, at me. The times when he's most likely to strike will be whenever she's briefly in a private place, like any time that she goes to the restroom, dressing room, or backstage areas. Instead of standing guard right outside the door, Barry should stay in cover and keep his distance, giving the killer a chance to fall for their trap. Now, since they know that their lives are going to be in danger, both of them should be carrying something for self-defense. They can't exactly walk around the parade with an arsenal of blickies for the whole world to see, but there are still plenty of low-key options that they could use. Now, of course, the best option would be to get some tools together and get to clicking and clacking, but if that's not an option, then they'll have to work with whatever they can get. Otherwise, pepper spray and tasers were both widely available in their state, easy to hide in their costumes, and also incredibly useful in a fight. Also, Helen here is already carrying her scepter, which could definitely be used to beat the shit out of somebody if necessary. I'm just saying. And Barry, he could include a cane as part of his disguise, making him look like a feeble old gent, while also giving him a solid weapon with good reach to outrange the killer's hook, because that motherfucker really small type. If he attacks, the key is to use their superior numbers to their advantage and circle him in to attack from multiple angles. Instead of going for a takedown right away, they should focus on disarming him instead, because once you get rid of the hook, then everything really becomes a lot easier. I mean, then he's just a regular guy in bulking fishing gear. Or is he? Either way, they should be able to work together to overwhelm him and take him down, and throw his body into the ocean next, so that they'll never have to deal with his again. The parade starts off just like any other year, but while Helen is waving to everyone from her float, she keeps noticing countless people in the crowd. Seeing one who looks kinda suspicious, Barry charges into the crowd and completely decks him without a moment's hesitation, only to realize that it's just some random old man who was wearing the wrong fit at the wrong time. Meanwhile, Julie arrives back at the house and finds the man's sister cleaning fish in the backyard. She thinks that it's all over when the woman comes barreling towards her with a bloody knife in her hands, but the truth is that Missy here doesn't mean any harm. As for her friends, they're still holding their position in the parade, but now everywhere Helen looks, it's like fishermen are popping up all over the place. I mean, there's no way to tell who it might be, but this one guy watching from the rooftop with a shiny hook in his hands looks like a strong potential candidate. Julie asks her to take a look at the yearbook, trying to have her point out this Billy Blue without explaining why she needs to find him. Getting frustrated, Missy finally admits that she already knows how her brother really died, saying how he couldn't go on with life after causing the accident that killed his fiancée. But she's been hiding the truth all these years because she needed the insurance money. Going to the shed, she comes back with a note that she thinks is from her brother saying, "I will never forget last summer," but Julie instantly recognizes it as a threat from the killer. Confused, she admits that she saw her brother on the night of his death, even mentioning the tattoo on his arm with Susie's name. But the woman insists that he never had any tattoos, and shouts at her to get off the property before she causes any more trouble. It doesn't make any sense, but as Julie looks at things from a different perspective, that's when she sees the bigger picture. The person they hit wasn't David, which means that they've been chasing a dead end this whole time. Back in town, the 4th of July festivities are still in full swing, and now it's time to announce this year's Croaker Queen. As the reigning champ, it's Helen's job to help judge the talent show, but as distracting as their terrible singing might be, she's even more distracted by the fear that the killer could strike at any moment. Barry is up on the balcony getting a bird's eye view of the scene, but he really should have been watching his own back, because while he's focused on the stage, the hookman quietly sneaks up behind him and starts attacking him before anyone in the crowd has even noticed. Seeing this, Helen jumps out of her seat and starts screaming at the top of her lungs, but the crowd circles her in, thinking that she's having some kind of emotional breakdown. And while they're all distracted, it gives the killer plenty of time to finish the job. Eventually, she's able to convince one of the deputies to follow her up to the loft. But by the time that they get there, there's no sign of the hookman or her boyfriend anywhere in sight, making it look like it was all in her head, even though she knows that she's telling the truth. Okay, and I thought the Croaker Queen talent show was the most painful thing that we'd see all day. You know, some people peak in high school, it's a fact. But this guy hit the lowest point in his life a few months after graduation, and just kept going down from there. Usually you don't get 2 chances to face off with the killer, but somehow your survival skills actually got worse the second time around. And Barry, that's why you up. It makes sense that the consequences of your actions would finally catch up with you because, after all, this entire thing was almost completely your fault from the beginning. Now, with that being said, if you killed him once, then you should be capable of doing it twice. But that's the problem. He's only dead because you're an absolute moron. The worst part is that you knew the guy was coming after all 4 of you, and yet it still never crossed your mind that you might be the next target? I mean, who looks easier to kill? So, I've got some bad news for you, Barry. It looks like you just up. And he definitely ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3. Noticing that she's badly shaken up, the deputy insists on giving Helen a ride home, but no matter how many times she tries to explain what happened, he absolutely refuses to believe anything about her story. They're driving down Main Street when they hit an unexpected roadblock, forcing them to cut through a side alley, and as they're coming around the corner, they see a man with a broken down truck blocking the way. Thinking nothing of it, the deputy gets out to offer him a hand, but it's a trap, and before he even knows what's happening, the killer pulls out the hook and pierces it straight through his chest. Panicking, Helen starts desperately looking for a way out of the car as the hookman slowly turns his attention towards her. Her only choice is to kick out the window and run for her life, but he won't be giving up until every single person who's responsible is dead. The girl makes a beeline straight for her family's clothing store where her older sister Elsa is still working late doing some inventory. It takes her sister approximately 5 business days just to open the damn door, but she finally gets inside just before the fisherman would have caught her. With no time to explain, she runs upstairs to call the police while telling Elsa to make sure that both doors are locked, but you know it's already too late because as she goes to check the other entrance, she's suddenly ambushed by the killer, who slices open her chest just as she turns around. Hearing the attack, Helen leaves the phone and nervously calls out to her sister, but there's no response. Terrified, she starts making her way towards the exit, but that's when she hears a noise coming from somewhere behind her, and as she turns around to look, the killer jumps out from his hiding place next to the mannequins, tackling her as they both tumble to the ground. She's able to get away thanks to him being trapped by the plastic, but the other doors are already locked, forcing her to start pulling herself up to the attic using the old lift. He takes a few swings at her legs through the gap, but she's able to lift herself up enough to climb to the top floor, only for him to reappear right in front of her just a few seconds later. But thinking quickly, she opens up a window and jumps out just in time, using a bunch of trash from a nearby dumpster to break her fall. The plan works, or at least that's what she thinks, and now all that's standing between her and safety is a short run down a dark alley. But just as she's about to reach them, the killer suddenly ambushes her from behind a stack of tires. And although she tries her best to fight back, she's eventually overpowered as the sounds of the marching band and fireworks cover up the screams. Okay, damn. Talk about a tough break for Helen. One year, you're the Croaker Queen with dreams of making it in the big city, and the next you're getting killed by a zombie fisherman behind the tire shop. Well, I guess that's show business. I'm putting half the blame on her sister because even though Helen literally said, "I'm being attacked," she moved with the urgency of a senior citizen buying lottery tickets at a gas station. Elsa here was useless in a fight, but she would have made a perfect meat shield for an emergency situation. And that's why the better approach would have been to stick together. Their phone was on the upper floor, and it looked like there was only one way up there besides the lift. So while one of the girls contacted the popo, the other could defend the staircase. Then all they would have had to do was hold the high ground until help arrived. And fighting defensively from an elevated position would have given them a much better chance of fending him off. Now, even after everything went horribly wrong, Helen here pulled an absolutely clutch move with that Assassin's Creed jump from the 3rd-story window. But that's also where she made her biggest mistake. The truth is that she was lucky to survive that fall when you look at all of the dangerous junk that was piled up inside. Knowing that the killer was still after her, she should have picked up a weapon from the dumpster before moving on, allowing her to actually fight him off and reach the safety of the crowd. Unable to get in touch with any of her friends, Julie heads back to the docks where she finds Ray working on his boat. After doing some more research, she now believes that the real killer is Susie's father, Ben Willis, who killed David as revenge for his daughter's death, and was leaving the scene of the crime when he was accidentally struck by their car. This explains the tattoo, the body, and the reason why he can't go to the cops, but there's one more loose end left to tie up. Looking down at his boat, she realizes that its name is Billy Blue, revealing that Ray here was actually the friend who visited the family's house after the incident. Chasing after her, Ray's taken by surprise when he gets clotheslined by this random fisherman, and thinking that he's here to help, she jumps onto the man's boat looking for shelter. It only takes a moment before she realizes her mistake, but by then it's already too late. She makes the shocking discovery that her so-called rescuer was actually the hookman after all. Grabbing his hook, the man starts following her as she rushes around the boat, but he easily cuts her off no matter where she goes. Finding a flare gun, she quickly loads up a shot, only for her to accidentally drop it overboard when the fisherman hits the throttle. Seeing him coming, her only choice is to climb down into the cargo hold through a hatch in the deck, using all of her strength to hold it closed as he tries to pull open the grate with his hook. At the same time, Ray hops on a dinghy and races out to join the fight, but he's quickly met by the captain, who starts battling it out with him while Julie gets a chance to catch her breath. In the scuffle, he falls onto one of the controls, sending one of the fishing nets into the water off the side of the boat. A second later, Julie pops up through another hatch, distracting him as the captain knocks him overboard. But he's saved by the net and manages to hold on for dear life. With one friend out of the picture, the hookman starts going after Julie, cornering her in the cargo hold with no way to get back up. And thinking fast, she finds a small hatch that leads into another storage area, trying to climb up the mountain of ice to reach the deck. But as she digs, she's horrified to discover that both of her friends' bodies are buried inside. Making it to a ladder, she's cut off once again by the fisherman, but Ray gets back on the boat just in time and he launches part of the rigging directly into the guy's face. Running to help Julie, they don't make it far before the killer is back on his feet, knocking her friend away and grabbing her so that she can't escape. But as he reaches back to deal the killing blow, his hook suddenly gets caught in one of the ropes. Ray hits a lever and hoists him high into the air, slicing off his hand as it gets caught in the machinery, before finally letting him fall headfirst into the pitch black water. Once they're safely back on shore, he explains that he only went to the family's house because he was overcome with guilt. The police let them know that the man's body was never found, and all that's left was the hook that got caught in the fishing net. And now that the past is finally behind them, they can both go back to living their normal lives again. Another year goes by without any more trouble, and by now Julie has almost forgotten about all the attacks. But one day, while she's taking a shower, she finds another mysterious letter on the bench. Lucky for her, it's just an invite to the frat house pool party. But when she goes back into the shower, she finds the words "I still know" written on the glass door, and suddenly the killer crashes straight through from the other side, lunging at her as the screen cuts to black. It looks like the hookman isn't dead after all, but if there's one lesson that we can all learn from what happened here, it's that you always need to confirm the kill. I Know What You Did Last Summer, written by Kevin Williamson, the same guy that wrote the OG Scream, a masterpiece of 90s teen slasher horror. The less said about the sequel, the better, but I'm super pumped for that remake coming out, because you already know they're gonna elevate it. Elevate the horror. Anyways, if you would have done anything differently, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next episode, and have a damn good day.